Hey, Spence, have you heard of this new movie called Skinamarink?
Yeah, Shane, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
But have you heard of this new show called The Last of Us?
Yes. Yeah, no, I've heard of that one.
Yeah.
We should watch those.
I think so, yeah. I don't know. Let's do that.
Okay, we watched them. So there's some really cool stuff happening in movies and TV.
Specifically as always, the horror or horror-adjacent genre.
And we wanted to talk about it, and so we watched it, and now we want to talk about it. So which one do you want to kick off with? Do you want to talk about Last of Us first, or do you want to talk about Skinamarink first?
I am slightly more negative on one of these things.
Right.
And I think
Dude, this guy hates Last of Us.
Whoa.
All he talks about is how much he dislikes
There will be no footage
the
in
show.
existence that says that that's true, and I will not allow it. Let's talk about Skinamarink first.
Okay.
This movie is wild.
Yeah. Spoilers for Skinamarink.
If you can spoil something
Actually, let's do some non-spoiler talk first.
All right, yeah,
and then move into some spoilery stuff if we want. That being said, is there anything to spoil?
Yes and no, like depending on who you are as a person.
Yeah.
I don't really think there's much to be spoiled with this movie.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just start off with like top level impressions. What'd you think? How'd you feel?
So I went into this movie with the trailer is amazing.
Yeah.
The trailer is, in my opinion, this may be telling of everything. I think the trailer might be better than the movie.
Yeah. The trailer's really great. The posters are really cool.
Yeah,
it's had some cool marketing for it.
So going in, I knew it was this $15,000 movie that by the time we had seen it had made 60 times its budget at the box office.
It's currently sitting at 1.4 million.
So even more now. And I love that. I think that is amazing. It's a Shudder original, and I think Shudder's a really interesting little horror streaming service.
I would be incredibly interested to hear how that came about, if it was something that was made and Shudder bought or Shudder financed. I'd be super interested because I actually don't know.
Yeah, because I think there's a short film. Now, I don't know if it's a direct, 1-2...
I think it is kind of... this is kind of going off of very little knowledge, so don't quote me on it. But I think it is like a proof of concept kind of short.
Okay. So... all of that had me very intrigued.
Yeah.
I think Shudder's really interesting, and Shudder's giving a lot of horror fanatics a chance to make weird little movies that would never get made anywhere else.
Which we love.
Who knows if they're good? I haven't seen a ton, but I've seen a couple, and I'm always I always walk out thinking I was glad I watched it. Mm-hmm. And the same with this movie.
Yeah.
I'm glad I saw it.
Yeah.
I cannot say I liked it, though.
Yeah.
And I do not want to be negative on this podcast. I don't like to be. I like to try to keep things as lessons. So I'll stick mostly to that. But I will say, and we'll get into the reasons why after you kind of give your little impressions. I found it a deeply frustrating experience because we went and saw it in a theater, and that's going to probably play a big part into my experience. But I was just very frustrated with it.
Yeah.
And
so for me, I had started. I'm on TikTok. What's up, TikTok? This is for you, TikTok. I was on TikTok and I was scrolling through and I was seeing all these reactions to the movie talking about this weird avant-garde experimental horror movie, and that super piqued my interest. I was just seeing so many people talk about how weird it is and how surprising that it's getting, that this $15,000 movie is getting any kind of release at all. And so that super piqued my interest. I saw the trailer. I was immediately this looks like it's going to scare the living shit out of me. But I really want to spend my money on it. I was thinking that it would deserve my money. At least the idea of a $15,000 movie getting a limited release.
I think saying it deserves your money is an accurate thing. Whether you like it or not, supporting something like this, because this doesn't come along very often. Because it's definitely not a wide release, but it's also not a particularly small one either.
No, I mean it's a limited release.
It's a limited release for sure. But the fact that we saw it in like Texas,
I mean,
and
the
not
fact
in
that-
like deep Dallas, Texas.
The
either.
fact that Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio probably got a similar release, and that movie was way more expensive than this one
Yeah.
was. Like, so
fuck Netflix.
fuck Netflix. So that was kind of my experience going in, like kind of knowing that was the thing I kept seeing people say about it. I had seen people's impressions and they kept being like, this movie's experimental. Like it is not what you've seen before and it's going to be weird. And so I kind of knew that going in. And then having watched it, I hated the experience of watching it, but I appreciate what it was trying to do. And I appreciate the way that it did it, but I hated the experience of watching it. That being said, that feels like the point.
Yes. A lot of my issues stem from the experience of watching it, where there's this idea in horror. I mean, this movie verges on cheap scares is what I mean by like don't get me wrong, there is cursed imagery and there's really good sequences of tension, but so many of the actual like scares that happen in this movie are build up, loud noise, and so my body involuntarily gets frightened. It's not that I'm afraid of the bang to come. It's that and the way it is it's all done in like it's like a 90s like video camera with a bad mic. So anytime somebody peaks, it's like screeching.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like there are times where there's a shot of a wall and a kid is, you know, we believe it because of the way it's really weird to talk about this movie in terms of like this because I don't exactly know what the camera's doing. There are times where it feels like the camera is being held by a child who's looking under stuff and it's like a first person thing. And then there are times where it feels very, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because, you know, normally a camera will be like omniscient or like like subjective or objective, all these different like ways to place a camera and frame a shot. This movie doesn't exactly have that in any sort of traditional sense. No. I'm mostly thinking about that scene in the like the bedroom with peeking under that scene where it's like that feels like it's like a POV shot of where this kid is looking, and then other times it doesn't. So I never quite know
there are
who's
a few experiences where you can pull actual POV shots where the rest of it is a little bit more omniscient.
Yeah.
But it does go into that first person
but it's like
perspective
it'll be times like that where it's like not in a POV shot, but it's just a shot of a doll stuck to a wall or something, and then you'll hear a screech like somebody screamed, and then you'll just hear really quietly, "Sorry, I was scared."
Yeah.
And it's like, how was I even supposed to know that was coming? And then you just blasted my eardrums with it.
Yeah, I would say that like my biggest complaint about like being in the theater and watching it was the sound mix.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the sound mix I think is really cool and interesting. I think it's doing a lot of cool, weird stuff. But it's those like jump scares that like Spencer mentioned they're just cheap. Because they're just like ear-piercingly loud. Like literally, I'm afraid it's going to be doing damage to my eardrums. They're so loud and so screechy.
I almost took out my AirPods and put them in just to dull the noise a little. Like
literally at one point, I was literally covering my ears at one point. I was playing off nonchalant, like as if I had my head in my hands because I didn't want to seem like a scared little baby in front of all these horror nerds.
I don't know, man. Like again, I wouldn't have thought any less of you because I was thinking about doing it, and I'm a horror nerd. Like it's like a cool movie, and it commits so hard to its style and its tone and all that. And it does have some cursed imagery.
Yeah.
It does have some real moments of tension, which is so frustrating to me that like then it plays on these jump scares.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
To lay out the movie, we haven't really talked about what the movie is about really at
Yeah,
all, 'cause
yeah.
I think that's tough. The marketing describes it as like two kids wake up in their house to find that their father is gone, and so are all the exterior windows and doors. And that's definitely part of it. That I think is like a good description of what the movie like starts out as. And like from that, like, yeah, like it's like hard to talk about. Like it's legitimately hard to talk about because my experience with watching this movie, and this was basically my review on Letterboxd, is it reminds me of trying to remember a nightmare as a child. like trying to remember your childhood nightmares like the next day after you woke up. Cause like you're scared, your parents are gone, everything's dark. You don't really remember the order of events or like what things really looked like. You just remembered that you were alone and you were terrified. And I think from that perspective, which I said that to Megan when we were talking about it after the movie, and she was like, "Oh yeah, that's what the director said." I was like, "Oh wait, really?" Because I wasn't really positive that's what he was going for or not, and apparently that's kind of the gist. That's kind of what he was going for.
Yeah,
he was trying to replicate a nightmare that he had as a kid.
So like, we talked a little bit about this, but like effectiveness of the movie, I think for the reason you're stating is like you got exactly what he intended.
Right. I felt like that is exactly the feeling for me of trying to remember a nightmare as a kid.
Yeah.
It was just like literally like I described, like you can't remember really faces, you can't remember order of events, you don't know where your parents are, and you're absolutely terrified. Like that experience is exactly what it felt like watching this movie for me.
And so just as a like, but because of that, it's effective to you, right?
Right. Yeah. And like even another one extra step for this that I'm going to give it even more credit is like sometimes these nightmares feel like they last forever. They feel like when you're in the nightmare, it feels like it lasted 6 days.
Yeah.
But it was really
500 whatever.
Right. Yeah. 572 days. It feels like it lasts forever. But in reality, it was as long as you were sleeping. And in all honesty, it was probably even less than that. It was only a short time of you sleeping. And so it's like that movie, I think, is incredibly effective because that movie either felt like it was 45 minutes long or 4 hours long. And I can't tell which.
Yeah, it's a very... We said this immediately after because I asked you, I was like, there's this like idea of, right, a movie needs to hold your attention. You should never be bored watching a movie.
Yeah.
Your mind should never wander. It should draw you in. And this movie might be too good at drawing you in because of what you're saying. It's that dreamy, it's that airy kind of like floaty feeling watching something.
Yeah.
Dude, I almost got out. We went to Alamo, so they have little cards and little pens. I almost started just jotting down ideas I was having for other stuff that has nothing to do with this movie because my mind was wandering so much. Yeah. And I can't, like any other movie, I would be like, that's a negative. This is the only movie I've ever seen where maybe that was the point and maybe it's a positive.
Right.
Because then it would have these moments and like something really cool within the sound design you talk about there being cool elements is this like quietness to certain things where you can't quite hear what someone is saying.
Yeah.
You know, or they use that occasionally literally for like probably the biggest scare in the movie, the biggest genuine scare in the movie, not just like my body convulses because of a loud noise. But yeah, like for me, I didn't like, that's not how I experienced dreams as a kid. You know what I mean? Like I had a lot of nightmares, but I also have like sleep issues. And so like, since I was a little kid, sleeping through the night felt like it wasn't a common occurrence anyway, nightmare or not. And so I am way more accustomed to like waking up and not being, you know, from a kid's perspective, you know what I mean? And like, there are certain nightmares I had as a kid that I still to this day vividly remember.
Yeah.
And so that walking out, that wasn't quite the experience. Like I see everything you're saying. And I think obviously you're right. The director's talked about that.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool that that's what he did and that's what he achieved. It's just like for me, and part of the reason my experience wasn't why I didn't enjoy it at all. Like why even because this was, look, to boil it down is I walked out of this movie and I kind of told you pretty quick. I was like, I don't know what I was supposed to get out of that.
Yeah.
I really don't. Because I'm going to be real with you. I didn't like watching a kid be tortured for what felt like 45 minutes or 4 hours. I didn't love that. Yeah. Like, in the end, for it to have had no point, it wasn't a cautionary tale. It wasn't just...
I mean, this is the epitome of an experimental film.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
I don't think
I
the
need
goal
to give it
was like
that.
theme or story. I don't think there's a message to be drawn. I think the goal was to replicate an experience as close as he could, as much of a universal experience, which was having a nightmare as a child.
Yeah,
trying to replicate that as closely as possible onto the screen. And I think that was the experiment.
Yeah.
That's what makes it experimental. And because of that, there is almost no story. There is definitely not like much in the way of themes. Like there's not really much in the way of like a moral or, you know, like there's not much you can take away other than like the feeling that it imparted upon you.
Yeah. No,
like that's very much my thought on how it is an experimental film and why there is such a lack of all of those things.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with everything you're saying, and I think it is effective. Like I walked out and you kind of did your like after you see one, you're like, I gotta shake that feeling off. And I literally asked you, I was like, are you feeling it like that? And you're like, yeah. And for like 35 to 45 minutes, I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. And then as we got back and we were talking about it, and it was like, all right, now I'm starting to get kind of spooked. And then the whole night I kept seeing one or two of the images from the movie in my head. And like I would wake up and be like, oh no, all the doors and windows are gone. Whatever. But so it's effective. It is an effective movie. What it's doing, what its intention is, it's all clear. You know what I mean? Whether or not my experience of a nightmare is the same or not, it is an effective representation of that dreaminess, that like you saying, like not quite remembering the order of events, not quite knowing if there is an order of events. Mm-hmm. All of that works. I just walked out thinking like, oh man, okay, all right, moving on. Like I wasn't like Barbarian where it feels like Barbarian you could boil down to something scary happens, right? Now I think there's more to Barbarian than that. I think there's a lot more to Barbarian than that. But this movie, I literally walked out, I was like, something spooky happened. And that was kind of the end of my experience, which is a bummer. And I don't want to be like too negative on it. I love that these guys, this team, whatever, for $15,000 made the weirdest thing they could. Yeah, no kidding. I love that. I think that's awesome. I think they were really inventive with some of the scares. Some of the good ones, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then there were times like there's the moment towards the end where like the blood splatter. Spoiler. As much as this can be a spoiler. Very light
spoilers here.
Where I was like, what are we doing with this? It's like I didn't quite know if it was supposed to be scary or not. I didn't quite know what the imagery was supposed to impart to me.
Yeah.
And then it would get fucking crazy with its visuals towards the end. That door, you know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. It's like some of those were so cool. Yeah. And I was like, me genuinely wondering, like, how'd y'all pull this off for so little money? Yeah. Like, that's where the money went, obviously. Yeah. But, yeah, like that was kind of a cool, like there's cool things in here. There's cool effective scares, but then there's also a lot that I just am like, dude, if I was watching this at home on a TV and a TV wasn't super loud, this wouldn't work. It would just be like, you know, and then I'd go on with my day.
See, yeah, Matt's, the funny thing is I've seen people say that watching it at home would feel like it would be more effective.
Oh, yeah, from the perspective of being trapped. My Letterboxd review was, great. Now the next time I wake up in the middle of the night and all the doors and windows are gone, I'm gonna be scared.
Yeah, I just...
from that perspective, I do see how it could be scarier at home.
I didn't like this movie. Like, I didn't enjoy watching this movie. But at the same time, I can't stop thinking about it. Like, it was incredibly, like, affecting for me. Like like I said, like it brought up a lot of feelings from when I was a kid having nightmares. And so like from that perspective, I think it's super effective. There are some things that deeply frustrate me about the experience of watching it. Specifically with the sound mix. Like I just felt like there were some of those that were just like unnecessarily cheap. You could have made like the scenes that they were punctuating were great, like almost all of them with a couple exceptions. Every time it did it, the scenes before it or right after were like really cool, effective, tension-filled moments that they kind of cheapen with the big scream or whatever.
The most tense scene in that movie is that bedroom scene to me, where it's like, look under the bed.
Oh god, I literally just got chills.
Like literally, that is the most. There's a line in this movie that like genuinely made me a little sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
Which we just doing spoilers now.
If you don't want spoilers, skip ahead like 2 minutes
to the Last of Us bit.
We're gonna talk spoilers for like 2 minutes.
My favorite things in this movie, and I say this as favorite, I did not like them.
Yeah,
but they were effective. There's language like put the knife in your eye. Yeah, like I literally my skin crawled. I was like, I felt so gross. The one where like this was the best moment of storytelling to me in the entire movie, avant-garde or otherwise, right? Where you hear this thing and she's kind of like, I feel weird, you know, and then she starts the dialogue becomes just unintelligible, and is all it is just murmurs, And then you're like, well, this is weird. Why are we? And then it shows her face and her eyes and her mouth are gone.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, like that genuinely terrified me. And then the last shot.
That last shot.
That
Holy
last
shit.
shot. Which is,
What's your name?
This is the funniest part to me. The whole time it's that last shot where slowly just this blurry face comes into the frame and just kind of like floats there and asks you questions. And
no, it's the kid asking the face questions.
no, I know it's the kid. Oh, is it the kid? I
The
thought it
kid's
was
asking the face questions. The face isn't even responding. Like it's just looking at you.
Well, see, that's okay. Maybe I didn't like this because then I literally thought that was the kid. My experience of it was that was the kid turning and becoming like the monster because you couldn't really even see the mouth. It was so blurry that I was just like, oh, it's the kid. Like the kid is now terrifying.
Interesting. I didn't read it
and
that way.
who
That's
knows?
a really interesting read.
That was my read of it because the kid is so unafraid after all this stuff that to me, I was like, oh, the kid's lost his mind and now he's like with
Interesting. That's a really interesting reading.
That was my read.
Interesting.
So
I'm
anyway,
here for it. That's a cool way to read it.
The funny thing about that moment, regardless, is it is the opposite of a cheap scare. Where the whole movie, I was literally waiting there like, they're going to do the screech out thing again. And then they didn't. And I was like, damn, why couldn't the whole movie have been like that?
Dude, yeah, literally that. And then it just ends.
Yeah, they did
it just hard cuts.
They did credit, literally.
Yeah, it was
Lights
like,
came on.
Yeah,
Like,
it was,
oh, all right.
It was the end. Cut. All right. I think that ends our spoiler conversation.
Yes, yeah.
But overall, I thought it was super effective for what it was going for. I hated the experience of watching it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever watch it again.
No, I will say I am glad we went out and supported it though.
Same here. I'm super glad we watched it.
There's been movies kind of towards the last half of 2022 that I was really like bummed and I felt bad I didn't go support.
Yeah.
Just by nature of not being able to because of one thing or another. And so I'm glad this one we went and supported. I think it's cool. And I think it's definitely, this movie will provoke you to think about it for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. Last of Us. Let's talk Last of Us.
Last of Us.
Before we get into the show, let's talk about the game. What's your
I'm going
experience?
to let you go first because I think you have the hotter take here. Mine is just going to be gushing.
I think it's really hot, but I don't think it's like the hottest take ever.
I just mean between our two experiences.
100%. Okay, look, here's the thing. I feel like you give me a hard time because you think I hate the game. I don't hate the game. I love the game. I think the story is the best story ever told within a video game. Definitely that I've played, but probably period. I think the story and the characters, the way that the game like pulls you into the action and puts you in these characters' shoes and makes you understand the choices that they're making and the bond that they have with each other. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I cannot take anything away when it comes to the characters and the storytelling. What I don't enjoy about the game Last of Us is the game. It's like the gameplay. There are parts of it that I do enjoy that I think are well done, but there's a lot of it that frustrates me and I feel like hurts the pacing some. Or at least it hurt the pacing for me. All of these things obviously are my feeling. I am in the vast minority here. I know that like literally like Last of Us is almost like top 10s for most people. Like GOAT award for sure. It's in that conversation. So it's like I know I'm in the minority here. But when it comes to a gameplay perspective, I find it very frustrating. Because for two main things that are pervasive throughout. Basically, the entire game goes between one of 3 or 4 different kinds of experiences when you're actually playing the game. One of them being the puzzles, which is I am here, I need to get there, I need to push a thing or find a thing to get there. Which most of the time is like, all right, where's the ladder? Let me go find the ladder. Where's the box that I need to shove or I need to get into the water to pull out of the water to put next to the thing for me to jump up? That bogs the pacing down. It isn't like fun or engaging really at that there might be some cases where it's a little bit more mentally engaging, but most of the time it just feels like time filler. And the other one that I think is honestly a bigger issue for me were the stealth sequences where you're trying to deal with the AI of the game. For me, I found the AI super inconsistent, not in a way that's like, oh, but that's how people in life are, but in a way of like, the game isn't working. The game told me this should work, and it like works like half the time. Where it's like you're trying whether it's a stealth sequence with people, or it's a stealth sequence with clickers, or whatever, the zombie. I mean clickers. I mean there's just multiple forms. I found the AI super inconsistent. I was never once able to completely get through a stealth sequence without rousing everyone. I never had an opportunity to where I could fully stealth the entire thing and get from A to B without quietly killing a couple people and then getting out without anyone noticing. Every single time it ends in a big shit fight. In a way that like is really frustrating, because like there should be opportunities for me to be able to distract a person like this, or distract a clicker like this. I throw the brick and it distracts that guy, and then I kill this guy. It just felt super inconsistent in a way that like drives me up the wall, because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So that is like the reason. My big two, like those are probably like of the things that I can think of. Those are kind of the two main things that frustrated me, and they're everywhere. The puzzles, in my opinion, unengaging puzzles, and in my opinion, the like super inconsistent AI are pervasive throughout the experience. And so it's like when it's in the cutscenes, or it's in these moments where it's like just you and Ellie walking and y'all are talking. Those moments are like by far my favorite, where it's like, it's just like you and this person and you're experiencing the story. And like that being said, like there are some actual gameplay sequences where you have the controls, and they are fun and they are engaging and do work well.
I was going to ask, do you feel the same about, because there are moments in the game where it's not even asking you to be stealthy. It's like you have to fight now.
Yeah.
Were those moments fun to you?
Those moments work just fine. I think the gunplay is really good, and it's also really scary because of how limited your resources are, which is another thing that frustrates me about the experience, is just how much time you are expected to look through every single drawer and every single cabinet in every single room of every single building. And it's just like, it's either that or you go in unprepared. And so it's like, you're punished for not doing it, but you're kind of punished for doing it because, again, it's like a little bit of a time suck for me. Like it like ruins the pacing for me. Like the experience of like, look, these rooms are wonderfully made and like so detailed and beautiful, but once you've seen a person's bedroom or an office building, you've seen it 17 times. So it's like that's frustrating for me, these pacing issues. For me, again, like I don't want to speak for everyone as if this is the universal experience, as if everybody should feel this way. This is definitely my experience, but those things really just bogged the pacing down in a way where it's like, nah, like I wanted to truck through these things and get to the story and get to these moments where they're like talking and like actual like humans. But every time I'm like, where I have control and I'm just in a laundromat looking for screws. I mean, it just doesn't work for me. But on the flip side of that, the story is so phenomenal. The acting, the performances, the score, the visuals, everything else about that game is so phenomenal, makes it worth it for me. It's still worth it. I still like that game. I still want to play that game again. I just can't stand those aspects of the gameplay. So now you gush about why I'm wrong.
My experience was nothing like this. There is a very strong possibility this is my all-time favorite video game. I did not have those experiences with it. To me, like you saying, like the pacing being slowed down by some of that stuff, I don't agree, man. I love that you're punished for not doing it. I love that you have to go into this next area and you go, look, I can still survive this, but it's gonna be harder. You learn that. It doesn't tell you that.
Right.
You go, hey, maybe go look for some stuff, and I'm the type of gamer who's like, I'm good, bro. I'm just gonna go ahead and win. And then you go ahead and you're like, I lost so hard. How do I find more stuff? I like that. It made me feel like them. Like, think about it this way. This game is so effective to me that there are moments in it that rewrote how I think in certain like respects, where we all know in a video game you have to beat the level to progress, to do the thing. Like, it doesn't matter what I do. I just have to beat the game to experience the next part of the story. But there was a part where something happens and Ellie is in danger, and I did the gamer thing where I leaned forward and I became bloodthirsty.
The game position.
Yeah.
I'm in full gamer mode.
Yeah, I became bloodthirsty in that moment where you're playing as Joel and you're like, you can't, they're gonna hurt. I paused it and put down my controller. It was so visceral.
Yeah.
Where I was like, I literally know I have to do this. Why am I so engaged in it?
Yeah.
Then there's, and this is a slight spoiler, but there's a moment where you play as Ellie. There's a sequence in the game where you play as Ellie.
Oh, spoilers.
I said, yeah. Anyway, there's a moment where you play as Ellie, and without it telling me and without me having to learn the lesson, I realized I'm playing completely different. I'm not playing at all like I would play if I was Joel. And then you try to do the thing you do as Joel because you're curious, and you went, how did I know that this is how this would go immediately and instinctually? I'm playing conservative as Ellie. Mm-hmm. She's like this little kid, and so all of a sudden I'm using a weapon I never used as Joel because I thought it was stupid and a waste of time, just naturally. It doesn't prompt me to do it, I'm just doing it. It's the first video game that ever made me cry. There's a moment where I literally got horribly frightened, and then you just see this little moment of beauty and I started crying. It was so good. It's the best story ever told in a video game. Again, for what I've played, and there's a lot of great games I haven't played, but I also think that's pretty common.
Have you played Bubsy 3D?
Have I played Knack 2, baby?
Knack 2, baby.
No, but The Last of Us is special to me. You know what I mean? I played it leading right up into The Last of Us 2, and I'll talk not spoilery about The Last of Us 2, but I will probably not get many chances to say this publicly. The Last of Us 2 rips, dude. That game is good. I don't care what anybody says. While playing it, I didn't love it.
Yeah.
But after I beat it, I realized I could not stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
And so I thought about it a whole bunch, and I saw a bunch of the discourse, and I was like, man, I think the discourse is wrong. I think this might be brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's so challenging.
Yeah.
And it's so challenging that if you walk out and go, well, this is it, it's you're wrong, dude. That game is so emotionally complex and difficult to sit with that you have to give yourself well past you've beaten it to really think about it. I think the Last of Us universe is great. If I could make something, if I could make whatever I wanted, it's a Last of Us. Not
over a Batman?
This way, not literally. Not literally The Last of Us, but my dream project, and I've told you this, my dream project, while yes, I have ideas for Batman movies, of course I do. I have extensive ideas because I'm a nerd.
Multiple ideas. So many ideas.
He's not. James Gunn.
James Gunn, reach out. We've got ideas, baby. We're the idea factory over here. We know some guys. They got some ideas too. Talking about you, Ethan. Come on.
He's kidding but being serious, but I'm just going to be completely serious. James. Even if I can just be a PA, I just want to be there.
James, Bubby, come on. We've been reaching out. We haven't heard a thing. Come on. Don't be like that. Don't be a...
But The Last of Us. If I could make anything, my dream project, of every idea I have, the one I think that's the best. And the one that I come back to over and over again. The one that I'm scared to actually sit down and fully write. I'm still very much in the development phase on it, but I have been for 6 or 7 years, where every couple of months I just come back to it, and I'm like, I'm just gonna work on this for a little bit longer.
Is
and
it actually in the universe? What do you say? What do you mean when you say a Last of Us?
I mean just a story that is like this.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? A story that emotionally resonates in this way, with these themes. You know, it's so this show coming out, I was very, very skeptical, and worried, but. All leading up to, a buddy of mine put it this way. He's like, dude, the way they're marketing this, it feels like they know they have something special.
Yeah.
And then it came out. Whew. That first episode hits, dude.
Yeah. I mean, when the casting came out, I was like, okay, literally perfect casting across the board. Literally no changes whatsoever.
Pedro Pascal is such a good piece of casting. It's almost boring.
Right. I mean, he's done this a couple times already, but he's so perfectly cast. And then the fact that Neil Druckmann is co-creator of the show, directing episodes, the fact that he's as involved as he is, while also not being afraid to change some things.
Dude, I mean the show starts on something that wasn't in the game.
Yeah.
Like they have a
Both episodes. So we're currently in the year in our current moment. The first 2 episodes.
when this episode comes out, it will still just be the first.
Right,
2.
but if you're listening to this 3 months from now,
wait, these don't delete after 48 hours.
only the first 2 episodes are out. So we're only speaking from that perspective of the first 2 episodes.
But obviously, we know some of where we're going based on
like you and I, those who have played the game kind of know where we're headed.
But there are changes they're making that I think are better than the game.
Yeah.
Like there are
some
improvements that are genuine. Like just a big change is episode 1, you spend more time in that first half. Like what is essentially the opening scene of the game. You spend like half of that first episode in that world. And it is so effective to do that. Like painfully, aggressively effective.
That moment in the game is already so much, and then it's so much worse in the show.
Yeah, dude. No,
so we're gonna kind of I don't know about you, let's stick away from spoilers for this conversation. If not almost, or at least for now, and then we can have like a couple 5 minutes
that's fine.
of spoiler conversation.
So I've said before, like again, The Last of Us, the way its themes play out, the way its world is, it's like meditation on violence, it's meditation on what this type of world does to you, is literally the thing I want to make more than anything. In my own version of it, not in the Last of Us universe, but a story that deals with things in the same way that the game and the show deal with it. So this is like made for me. So it's a little unfair.
So the world that he's created, there's this guy named Noel and a girl named Shelley.
Yeah.
And Noel has to get Shelley across the United States. He has to go from the West Coast to the East Coast.
Have you been reading my notes?
Yeah, dude. Every night I go into your room and I read your diary and then I steal your windows and doors.
That's where they've been going.
Yeah.
No, but
and then I just scream at you at the top of my lungs
through a bullhorn that maxes out and peaks.
Yeah, there you go.
No, but this show, like, I thought for sure I would have some issues.
Yeah.
Episode 1 ended and I was like, I don't have any complaints, dude. Like none whatsoever, honestly.
Yeah.
Like some people have been like, some of the scenes go on a little too long here or there, and I'm like, I don't know. The scene my buddy pointed out, he's like, there's one in particular, and I was like, he kind of said it, and I was like, I don't know. I liked all the beats of that scene. It's the scene where he's you find out this is a very mild spoiler. Joel's dealing drugs.
Okay.
He's like, that scene goes on like a minute too long, and I was like, I don't agree. I like it.
Think that scene is much longer than a minute.
Yeah. I disagree with him. I think the show, these first 2 episodes have been like...
I'll fight him.
Yeah. I'd watch that. I think up until now, the show has like been just an A+ for me.
Yeah.
And it's 2 episodes in. Obviously, I'm not like trying to set the bar. So obviously things can fall apart. But it just currently doesn't feel like that's where we're going.
Look, as long as they stick pretty close to what's there, I mean, like the casting is so good. Clearly these actors understand the assignment. They understand these characters. They're like slightly different in some fun, cool ways that I only see as improvements, honestly.
Yeah, no, it was, a few things play out emotionally getting you to the same place, but they play out a little different.
Yeah.
Specifically some stuff in episode 2.
Yeah.
But man, like, just talk about the actors for a minute. Pedro Pascal, we'll start there.
Yeah.
That dude is so, we already said he's done this a couple times already.
Yeah.
Perfect as Joel.
Yeah.
But it's his performance, man. It's like from the beginning of the episode into the like second half of the first episode, you know what I mean? The first half, second half, you just feel he's this different person.
Yeah.
And he
feels so different from the first half of the first episode into,
It's just like the way he moves, the way he talks, the way he looks. Like,
yeah.
It's so good. And I think everyone's been talking about Bella Ramsey for good reason.
She is so good.
She is incredible in this. And she's the one that I think is going to get a lot of the shit because she doesn't look like Ellie. And you know what? I'm going to say it, man. Pedro Pascal does not look like Joel.
What?
He just gives off Joel.
How does she not look like Ellie?
Well, look at a picture of Bella Ramsey. Look at a picture of Pedro Pascal and Joel and you go, that's like the same dude but different a little bit, and you look at them and they just look different.
I don't know. I don't even think they look that different.
I that's the one thing I agree with, and I also don't think it's a valid complaint because guess what? She's not a video game character.
What?
Yeah, Bella Ramsey's a real person.
I thought she was a virtual reality experience.
Bella Ramsey rules, dude. Like, she's so good. But I say this, and I will talk about her more, but like, Pedro Pascal is unbelievable as Joel. And I think that just needs to be said more because everyone's talking about Bella Ramsey also. But I'm like, man, Pedro out here carrying this shit.
Yeah, man.
For a lot of that first episode, it's just him. I mean, Bella Ramsey's not in it all that much in that first one.
And then you also have Anna Torv as Tess.
Yes.
Man, that casting is so good.
Yes.
When I saw that casting announcement, I was like, man, they could not have cast somebody better for that role.
Yep.
Like, oh, she is so good. I love Anna Torv. I've loved her since Fringe. Yeah. Like, shout out to my Fringe fans. You know who you are. You the real ones.
I've known you for a long time. I had no idea you liked Fringe.
I used to love Fringe, dude. I used to love Fringe. I need to watch that show again. I'm sure it hasn't aged great, but I remember really, really loving that show. So shout out to Anna Torv. Honestly, I really do think she's perfectly cast in this, and I think she does a wonderful job as Tess. Like, they give her a little bit more than they do in the games too, which I really appreciate. They like make her a little bit more of a character, and they give her a little bit more, like a little bit more oomph in there.
There's some more agency.
Yeah.
And they deepen her relationship with characters around her in really interesting ways, in ways that, like, they talked about this, right? So the way The Last of Us, the video game, was released ended up informing the show a little bit because when the game came out, it was The Last of Us. And some decisions creatively were made that worked perfectly well, but then they released a DLC after the game had already come out.
Yeah.
And that revealed some stuff that made a few things at the beginning of the first game feel a little distant. Mm-hmm. Feel not quite like they're like, well, wait, if this is here, why were they acting this way here?
Yeah.
And so in the show, they just tweak. They just go, well, here's the relationship, and they inform it based on what the fans knew later, what Neil Druckmann knew later, right? So this is essentially them being able to just like take the thing that's like perfect from a story perspective and try new things and tweak things and deepen things. Like, that's the craziest part. It's like, it's a very faithful adaptation. Yeah. Very, very faithful. But you watch it and there's just little things where you're like, I think the end of episode 2 might be more effective in the game, in the show, than it is in the game.
I agree with that completely.
It's like, woo, the way that one ended is so emotional and so gross and so sad. Like, it's all of those things in the game, but the perspective and the emotional depth we have with certain characters is just stronger. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's fascinating.
Yeah. If you're even at all squeamish, this is a PSA. If you're even at all squeamish, do yourself a favor. Don't look up how real the show is and how really freaking terrifying and gross fungus is in real life. Do yourself a favor. Don't watch. I think it's Insider did a video, and I watched like 75% of it, and I had to turn it off because it made me want to die. So do yourself a favor. Don't learn how this shit works. It's gross, and it'll terrify you.
Let's put it this way. There's an opening scene, which is an addition, where they kind of talk about fungal infection and the possibility of it, right? That's not a spoiler. It is horrifying. Yeah. They open the show with that, and then there's a hour and 20 minutes where you sit there with your butt clenched because you're like, oh, this is how it works, and I don't like it.
The way that they realize that visually of how it works is so gross.
Mm-hmm. And then, so gross. No, the first episode, you think they take it as far as they're going to take it. In episode 2, went, hold my beer. Yeah. And then just tops it. No. It's unreal, man. But like in a way that I think is perfect for the world they're building.
Oh, no. It's great. It makes me want to die.
Yeah. Now, like, my one complaint, maybe.
Throw it on me.
And this is not even a complaint. Like I said, I think it's essentially an A+. Mm-hmm. I worry they reveal some information in episode 2 that makes the world feel less survivable in the show than the game.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like, there's, I don't know. Can we talk about this one? Is this a big spoiler? It's really just essentially a tweak to the, like, how the fungal infection works.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we get into spoiler talk, or we can just have 5 minutes spoiler talk?
Let's just do 5 minutes spoiler talk.
Let's do 5 minutes spoiler talk.
Look, do I think we'll have more to talk about the show? Yeah, I think there's a few more things, but 5 minutes spoiler talk. It was kind of leaked / announced leading up to the release of the show that they were changing how the infection works.
Yeah.
In the game, it's these spores. So you'll go into a room and you'll be like, spores, and so they'll all put gas masks on.
Yeah.
Megan told us a very funny joke where she went, all right, we're going to be real the development team of the show, we're going to be so faithful. It's going to be like just like the game. They went, yeah, we're all on board for that. And then they cast Pedro Pascal and went, so we're not doing gas masks.
We can't cover up that face.
Can't cover up that face. Not going to happen. And thank you. I appreciate that.
I mean, like, legit, I honestly do think that probably is part of the conversation of, like, it'll be more difficult for acting and ADRing. And
especially after that, especially after that first clicker scene where you're like, in the game they probably would have had gas masks on, but no, dude, they show you their whole fucking face.
I think it. I disagree slightly with. I don't think it necessarily makes the whole world as unsurvivable as you think it does.
No, well, let me give you my justification.
Yeah. To lay it out there, he's talking about the fact that
I also haven't explained how the
I was just about to. Well, go for it.
In the game, it's these spores that like cluster together in like certain areas, like dark, damp areas. And so if you go in it, and sometimes in the game you have to put your gas mask on to survive. And if whatever, it adds this tension of like if you walk into a room, you got to get the gas mask on.
Yeah.
And so in the show, you could have just done that.
Yeah.
And I would have understood it because it like that's one of the ways the infection spreads is like that. In the show, it's different. It's like it'll transfer through like saliva, bites, and then there's also these like tendrils that like go under the ground and reach everywhere. But some of them are so small.
I don't think you can get it from the tendrils, though.
I think you can.
I don't think so.
Are you positive? Because I think if you're standing there, you put your hand in there, and they reach up under your fingernails like some of them did.
Yeah, but
how would it have spread in the first place, though? Before it got into humans, that's how it would have had to get into humans, right? Is some version of that,
or ingesting it or something? I don't know.
That's true.
Because every time they talk about it,
but that's also not my reason for thinking it's unsurvivable.
Okay, interesting.
My reason for thinking it's unsurvivable is end of episode 2, Joel kills one. And then after he's done it, after he's killed it, then it shows the tendrils crawl up and start wrapping around his fingers. And that is what alerts all of the ones from like hundreds of yards away, a mob of them to attack.
Yeah.
And they also explain that if you step on one, it can alert ones from all over the place and they'll all swarm you. That makes it feel to me like, oh God, so like, and they talk about how they're underground. They'll grow through walls. They'll grow through all this shit to try to spread itself, right? That's what the fungus does. Its entire survivability is based on its ability to spread. Yeah. My reason for thinking it's unsurvivable is in the game, if I stepped on whatever, I didn't have to worry about 80 of them attacking me. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that makes it feel like it's it creates two issues. It creates this survivability issue where I'm going to be thinking the rest of the show like, all right, don't step on one tendril, or else you're fucking dead. Or it's going to be like, they made a really big deal out of this. Where are all the tendrils? Like, are they only clustered in cities? Like,
I mean, like, I think they just might only be clustered around large masses of them. Like, I think that was why I'm like, that's why it wasn't that big of a concern to me, is because it just feels like it's like where many of them are is where the tendrils
and they'll dry
spread out,
and you can like you said, he breaks one. But my one reason for saying that is it's just like, it's going to feel, in my opinion, and this is more of a concern than like a hard, this is how it is, because moving forward, who knows? A lot of this show takes place in like the wilderness, you know what I mean? So maybe it's different out there. But there is an element of me that's going to be like, it's really convenient that there's no tendrils in this room during this fight scene, versus the spores just filling a space and like you had to, is my concern. Because occasionally you'll do that kind of thing in shows where I'm like, it feels weirdly convenient that you made a really big deal about this here and now it's not an issue in a situation where it feels like it should. My concern. And again, it's a concern, not a hardened.
Here's my thing. In the show, they don't make that big of a deal of it. In the after show, they make a bigger deal of it.
I don't know, there's a whole scene where they explain it and then they get caught in the end because of it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a big deal.
I don't know. It's easy for me to hand wave it, I think. I didn't think about it until
just in my brain, I'm like, this feels like it would spread, like it would be impossible to survive, is my point.
Okay, 20 seconds of spoiler talk.
We could talk more about spoilers if we want. We don't have to Do you want to only do 5 minutes?
Well, I said 5 minutes, and if somebody skips exactly 5 minutes, and then we're in the middle of spoilers again.
We're still. All right.
Well, I mean, that's why I said 5 minutes.
We talked about one thing.
I know.
All right. No more spoilers.
If you can hear this, we're doing 5 more minutes of spoiler time.
No,
Go.
look, I just wanted to talk about more about the game, the show, and the performances and the moments. But watch it.
Watch
you know
it.
what I mean? But
We're still only 2 episodes in. I think we can have a more thorough conversation once the series is, or once the season is over.
Yeah.
I think we can revisit this, or maybe every few weeks we can have an update or something like that. I don't know.
yeah. Anyway, watch this. It's great.
Yeah, it's really, really, really
Like
good.
legitimately an A+ for me so far, based
Yeah.
on 2 episodes. Like if I were a reviewer and I had been given a couple episodes, I would be hard and fast watch this show. Don't do anything else. This is the best. Like everyone was losing their shit over House of the Dragon. And I think House of the Dragon's pretty cool. The Last of Us makes it look like bad TV.
Yeah, by comparison. It's like, if this is what HBO can do, then
it makes everything else look a little shitty.
Yeah.
Now I haven't seen Succession, obviously. I haven't seen... HBO's doing some cool stuff in the TV department, but The Last of Us is like...
That being said,
If it remains this good, it's making a play for my favorite currently running TV show, which is
Yeah.
already Barry, which is unfucking believably good.
Yeah.
Anyway, I look, I think this show is amazing. How does it compare to the game for you so far? Do you find it more effective that you're not in the controls, or do you find it... Because that was one funny joke I read where it's like, this is so unrealistic. Where's the scene where I die to a clicker 20 times then throw my controller? Where is it?
Right.
Which is very funny.
I mean, like, the pacing is better. Like, for me, like my issues with the puzzles and all that stuff, that's not a part of it. I'm only experiencing my favorite part of it, which is the story and the characters. I don't have to. I'm not stuck in any of the parts that I disliked about the game. So it's only friggin' A+ from me, bud.
The show rules.
Yeah.
Watch this show.
Watch the show.
Do it.
Do it.
Why aren't you doing it?
Why?
Do it. Now.
Lessons or anything like that, or do we want to?
Lessons are interesting.
We're 2 episodes in, or we can talk about.
I was with Skinamarink. I don't know if I have a lesson. I don't know if I have a lesson.
Really? There's nothing you could take away from it?
No, there are things you can take away from it, but it's, again, like I said, like normally I'll walk out of a movie and I'll, whether it be like Ford v Ferrari or something like that, where I was like, I can walk Ford v Ferrari or like Barbarian or, some other movies where it's like, these are just like really fun. I can still walk out garnering some kind of theme or some kind of emotion or some kind of writing tool.
Yeah.
I don't really know if I have that for Skinamarink in a way that like I'll take to other stuff.
Interesting.
There are things in it for sure. Like
that could be, you're accurate there. There are things in it.
Like there are things in it that I think about, but there's nothing that I'm like, oh man, I got to remember that. I really got to try to utilize that.
Yeah. Okay. From that perspective,
that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Because like, look, if you don't want to make experimental films, then there's not, this is a very experimental
I'll say this. If I have to take any lesson, end your movie on a creepy ass note and end it. Don't let it sit for too long.
No.
Destroy your audience.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because that last shot is horrifying and really cool that we had a different interpretation of it, which we hadn't talked about that.
I really love that.
That's really cool. That would be my lesson. My lesson for The Last of Us we'll talk about as the series goes on, but like basically know your characters and know how your characters have to interact, so you know when to put all the little breadcrumbs of them becoming what they become at the end.
Yeah.
Because you can feel all that between our 2 protagonists, Joel and Ellie here. You can already feel where we're going.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to watch that blossom in a slightly different way than the game, but going towards the same place.
Yeah.
That would be what I would say. Liddy, you got any lessons?
Yeah, I found, look, I have no plans on making any experimental cinema, but I found it really cool and inspiring that a movie this divisive and this sparse of plot and theme and morals is clearly having an effect on the public at large. It's making money and people are talking about it, and it's like worthy of like people going and seeing it and talking about it. I think that's incredibly cool and incredibly inspiring. That being said, I hated watching it, and I don't plan on making anything that experimental, if anything experimental, really at all.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really an interesting, a cool takeaway to learn, like, about the cinema going public, that people are this willing to kind of, like, especially the horror nerds. Horror nerds will do anything. They watch anything.
Yeah.
Like, if it's cool and weird and new, they'll go and watch it.
Yeah.
And so that's super inspiring. And then about the show, it's like, man, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean? Like, the story is so good in the game, and, like, all you have to do is not fuck it up.
Not fuck it up, and if you want to change stuff, don't change the emotion.
Right.
Just change the delivery system.
Right. Like, the characters are the same. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the things that work about the game, the story, and the characters are all there.
Every indication is the arc is the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
The end mission is the same, but there's these little changes that just work.
And that's the thing is, like, don't do... Look, just because I hope to God they don't do a Game of Thrones, and, like, just because we all know the ending and all expect the ending, they're going to be like, well, this time it's different.
I don't think they will.
I hope to God they don't. Have some strength in your convictions, knowing this is a wonderful story, and that many people who haven't played the game and know nothing of the game, like me and my boss were talking about it this morning, and he knows nothing of the game. He was like, I guess it's a game or something. Like, he knows nothing of it, and he really liked the show. So it's like, just stay the course, follow the story, follow the characters to where they end. Look, there are going to be some changes and some additions and things like that along the way.
This next episode 3, seems like it's a pretty big addition to the game in one way or another. But
again, it only seems to, like, deepen the characters and deepen the story, rather than, like, oh, well, that doesn't, like, like, it's great to see, like, a story that works, and people, the people behind it not being slavishly devoted to it, but also having the strength enough to know it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
It's clearly made by one of the guys who made
The
Last of Us, and also a just massive fan of it who wants to see it portrayed in a different medium.
Yeah.
I mean, adaptations are already weird of video games, right? Because look, Chris Stuckman actually has a really good video about how it's stupid that we keep talking about how there are no good video game adaptations, when there are, at this point, a lot.
Name 2.
Sonic and Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic 2.
Bars. That was actually really good.
There are a lot, and we need to drop this idea that there are none. It's just like, it's a medium that is already so cool and so original that, like, do we have to have adaptations of them? But if you're going to adapt them, The Last of Us is, like, the key example of, like, you don't have to be a one-to-one copy. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like you said, like,
don't fix it.
Anyway, that fucking Last of Us is everything for me right now.
Yep. B segment. Okay. This time we're gonna play a very common game, but it's gonna be a fun one. We're gonna play 20 questions, but for characters from movies that you and I have seen in the theater within the past year.
I'm horrible at this game.
You're horrible at it?
I'm not good at 20 questions.
Okay.
But this will be fun.
Okay. So they're all human characters. They're all people. So they're all from movies that you and I have seen in the theater together.
And they're like characters, not actors.
Characters, not actors.
Okay.
Characters, not actors. Great question. Okay.
That's my first question.
Kick it off.
Me? I'm going first?
Yeah.
So you have a character right now.
I have 3 that I have prepared for you.
Oh, shit. Okay. Man or woman?
Man.
Comic book movie?
No.
Was it directed by Jordan Peele?
No. That would be such a cheap way to do this.
Was it directed by? Okay, so not a comic book movie, not directed by Jordan Peele. Okay, what other movies did I see? I only saw 2, so.
Yeah, you famously doesn't watch a lot of movies.
Sci-fi?
No.
Action movie?
No.
Comedy?
No.
I'm already so bad at this.
Yeah. 6 questions in.
It was a man, right?
Yep. No, that doesn't count.
No. What other good questions? Are they the main character?
Yes. Yes.
So it's a two-hander. And the movie's a two-hander.
Sure.
Is it from the Banshees of Inisherin?
Nope.
Ah, fuck. That was going to be my big one.
Yeah.
We've seen it. Did we see it in a theater together?
Yes.
Now I have to remember all the movies we went to. So, not a comic book movie, so that takes out a couple. We saw Barbarian together. Is it Justin Long's character from Barbarian?
No.
Damn. So it's not a sci-fi, so it's not that or Everything Everywhere All. It's not
There's 10 questions, so you've got 10 left.
Trying to think what else we saw in a theater together. We've been quite a few times.
Yeah. Yes, we have.
They're like the lead, but not definitively. It's not an action movie, so that takes out. Am I allowed to look at my letterbox to see?
No, you are. You are not allowed to look. No, sir.
I can't even.
You're You have to remember this. No,
I didn't know we were playing this game.
I know, but no, sir.
Fuck you.
That's cheating.
Dude, I saw 700 movies last year.
How many did you and I see together?
I can't remember.
We didn't see that many. I could probably count on two hands how many times we went to the theater together.
Is it animated?
No.
I hate this game.
I love it so much.
I hate this.
We don't have to do all three. Maybe we can only do two.
Maybe we can do one. So it's a man who's kind of the main character. Is it a movie in Oscar contention? Publicly, like wide. Is there a heavy amount of buzz about it?
I'm going to give you a very big clue. Not this year, it's not.
Confusing.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like as big a clue because it could go either way, where it could be a movie that isn't eligible this year. But if we saw it this year, I've only been around for like half of the year where we've been seeing stuff together. I need to keep track of what movies we see together more.
It isn't eligible for the 2023 Oscars or the 2022 Oscars or next year's Oscars.
So it's just not eligible for an Oscar?
It's just not a new release.
Oh, okay. That's where we get cheap.
That was too big of a hint. So now you've got
what old movie did we see?
You've got 7 questions left.
What old movie did we see?
Yeah, yes or no questions
what
only.
If you fell for it though.
I'm thinking about taking away a question for that one.
You can do whatever you want. I'm gonna lose either way. I'm genuinely at a loss for the movie we saw. I hate this game, dude. Fuck this game. I'm just gonna start asking questions.
How about this? After this one, you can do one for me. It just has to be a movie we saw together.
I don't want to do it for you.
Start asking questions.
You
have 7 questions.
I don't
left.
have good questions to ask though, because I know it's a. But
I told you it didn't come out recently.
Did it come out in the 2010s?
No.
What movie did we go see together? Is it Avatar? No, it's a sci-fi. Yeah.
No.
You can take it one.
5 questions left. Come on, like, not in the 2010s.
I know, but I'm genuinely I can't remember what movies we've seen together this year.
Yeah.
I remember some. I mean, we went and saw Barbarian.
You asked what genre it is, and there's basically only one left that you didn't ask about.
Drama?
Well, maybe 2 then.
Is it a horror movie? Did I ask that? Okay,
no.
It's Jack Torrance from The Shining.
Yeah, shithead. Just ask questions.
Fuck you.
Okay, yes, it's Jack Torrance.
I'm doing one for you now.
Okay, do one.
I'm gonna be. So we had to have seen it in the theater this year.
In a theater within the past year. So not I mean, like, obviously not in 2023 because we've only seen like 3 movies. Or 2, technically, you and I. Or is it more than that? Whatever. Have to have seen it together in a theater together in the past year.
This is not going to be... maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Keep count for me.
Yeah. Off the spot, I'll just go with it. Okay.
Male. Is it a male?
Yes.
Is it animated?
No.
Was it released in 2022?
Yes.
Is it an Oscar contention?
No.
Interesting. Is it a comic book movie?
Yes.
Is it Black Adam?
No.
Is he from Black Adam?
No.
Okay. I don't know what other comic book movie we've seen this year. What other comic book movie have I seen this year? Is it MCU?
Yes.
We didn't see Thor together. We didn't see... Is it from Doctor Strange?
Yes.
Is it Doctor Strange?
No.
Is it Wong?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
I was gonna see if I could slip you up with that one because I didn't know if you'd remember we went and saw it. So when I
Yeah.
came down to visit,
Right,
we went and saw it.
I was like, okay, because the first time I saw it, it was me, Megan, Bryce, and Katie, and then I do remember seeing it a second time.
Yeah,
so.
because you and I were like, let's
Yeah.
go to a movie.
Let's go see-
And
yeah.
Wanted to
And
see
that
something
movie rules,
light
so.
and fun. It does. Yes, it does rule.
Do you want my
Let's do
other
another one?
one?
Let's do one more. Let's
Okay.
do one more.
Okay, exact same parameters.
Okay.
I'm ready when you are.
Is the character female?
Yes.
Was it released in 2022?
Yes.
In Oscar contention?
No.
Interesting. Sci-fi?
No.
Action?
No.
Comedy?
No.
Horror?
Yes.
Is it from Barbarian?
No.
We saw it together, right? That's
Mhm.
I don't know. I keep forgetting the rule. Released in 2022. What other horror movies did we see?
Suddenly terrified we didn't go see this together.
I was about to
but
say, I don't know if we
we
saw
bo-
another horror movie.
We both saw it in the theater. I know that for sure, and I'm 95% positive we saw it together.
Was it released since I've lived in Texas?
Yes. I'm suddenly very afraid.
I was going to say, I'm not positive we saw another horror movie together outside of The Shining and Barbarian. Oh, is it Pearl?
Yes.
Okay, is it Pearl from Pearl?
You literally said, is it Pearl? And the answer is yes to both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Pearl.
Hey!
All right, that was a fun.
That's a fun game. I'm
Yeah.
bad at it. Remember that night we had a road trip and this is how we stayed awake because it was
Dude.
so late?
That was a good one. That was a good road trip.
I tripped him up with somebody from a movie he didn't realize he was in. You got it eventually, though. It was from Superman Returns. It's somebody we don't like talking about.
Oh, Spacey?
Yeah. Don't say his name.
Fuck you, Spacey.
You can say that.
Fuck you, Spacey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Recommendations?
Yeah,
We should put that on the t-shirt.
We should put "Fuck You, Spacey" on a t-shirt.
Let's do it. Fuck
I'm
you,
in.
Spacey.
My recommendation, I could have a couple. I want to recommend just another Pedro Pascal movie, which is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Still haven't seen that one.
It's going to be an episode, and I think we're going to do it in conjunction with some Nick Cage movies, which is going to be fun.
Yeah, that would be super fun.
But that movie is really funny and not.
We'll do that
talked
when Renfield comes out.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually a great idea.
That'd be a good one too. That'll be.
We
good
should
one
find a
too.
weird Pedro Pascal movie to watch along with him too.
That'd be super fun.
That movie's awesome. It's great. But my real recommendation is just get on The Last of Us. Just start watching it.
Yeah, get on it.
Like, I think it is, or play the game. Either way, but watch the show.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. I'd play the game, dude. There's the PS3 version, the PS4 remaster, the PS5 remaster. Yeah, just play the game.
Good.
It's a great game. Like, look, I have my personal issues with it. I know I'm in the minority. Everybody else fucking loves it. Go play it. It's a great game.
Play the game.
Play the game.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Those are mine. I mean, really start watching this show because it's something special, man. It's really, really good.
Yep.
Your recommendations.
In honor of our Lord and Savior, Brendan Fraser. That almost kind of rhymed in a way that I loved. Our Lord and
Speaking
Savior,
of Brendan Fraser, just real quick, I love you desperately.
Brendan, come on the pod.
You
Come
don't
on
even
the
have to
pod.
come on the pod. I just want to shake your hand.
I just want to give you a hug.
I do. I really do. I would love
I'll
you
wear
to
a
know.
mask. I'm vaxxed up. Well, I'll give you a hug.
I look in all seriousness. I am so happy that he
Yeah.
is look. I feel mixed about some of the parading of Brendan Fraser and Ki Hu Kwan around. Like we didn't treat like we, not us.
Yeah.
Like Hollywood didn't treat them horribly for years, but I'm also happy that they're finding this love and notoriety now because it's absolutely deserved. And both of them gave 2 of the best performances of the year, and they're having the time of their lives, and I'm so happy for them. But Brendan Fraser, I love you. I've loved you for so long.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you're back, and I cannot wait to see. You're working with Scorsese. You're working with. I cannot wait.
And in honor of that, I rewatched The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. And The Mummy is like legitimately great. If you don't love that movie, fuck you.
Yep.
Movie's so good. I watched The Mummy Returns. Bunch of fun. Not as good. Bunch of fun. Worth a watch. It's still a good one. It's still super, super, super fun. So honestly, if you haven't watched those in a while, I highly recommend giving at least the first Mummy a rewatch. It's super fun.
I read a tweet that said, Brendan Fraser Renaissance? What are you talking about? Stop acting like we haven't all been watching The Mummy since 1998, twice a year since 1998.
Accurate.
And I was like, damn, that's so true.
It's very true. It's very true.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say go rewatch those. Super fun. Some of the best. And then also, I rewatched a movie from, I think, was it last year? The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Rips.
That movie absolutely rips. If you haven't seen it, which I feel like a lot of people slept on that
not
one.
enough people have.
That movie is so sweet, so much fun, so funny,
So well animated,
so animated.
Original.
Yeah, go watch that. That deserves your attention. It deserves a watch.
I like it so much. It's on Netflix. It's like a Netflix original movie. I bought the Blu-ray for like full price. That's how much I like that movie.
That
I was
movie
like,
deserves
this movie rules. I want to get it. So I own it on Blu-ray for like the full price.
Yeah, that movie absolutely rules. Absolutely hilarious. Go watch it.
Yep. So now you got some stuff to watch.
Yeah.
You got, a video game to start playing.
It's a pretty long one too.
It's a long one.
Get ready.
And then you're going to want to play the second one, and then that's a whole bag. You got The Mummy to watch. You got The Last of Us to watch. I do recommend, even though I did not like it, I do recommend supporting Skinamarink.
Go see Skinamarink. Look, it's a tough experience, but it is worth having in the theater.
Yes.
It is worth... I saw Skinamarink in the theater. It's worth having that.
We're just going to get a series of those made.
Dude,
this guy saw The Nice Guys in theaters.
This guy saw The Nice Guys. This guy saw Skinamarink.
It's kind of a good idea.
We're
we should get stickers made at least.
Dude.
Bet. My sister makes stickers. I'm gonna hit her up. No, but you got stuff to watch. You got things to go out and do. So do them. Or I don't know. Live your life.